gunfire piercing the night, a popular Orlando gay nightclub under siege by a lone shooter.
Those who can move on their own, running in panic. The wounded carried to safety.
There was bodies everywhere.
Police moving in, busting into the club, the gunman killed in a shootout.
Questions tonight about who Omar Mateen is. Family of victims in shock.
And I saw that one of Christopher's friends, Brandon, had posted on Facebook that there was a shooting at the Pulse.
All day long, complete strangers coming together to donate supplies and blood.
Across America, everyone coping with our country's worst ever mass shooting.
We need to demonstrate that we are defined more as a country by the way they live their lives than by the hate of the man who took them from us.
And late tonight, some of the bodies of the 49 victims killed before the gunman was shot were removed from Pulse nightclub.
He was very short-tempered, and he would often get into fights and arguments with his parents, but because I guess I was the only one in his life, most of the violence was towards me at that time.
We're also hearing from the ex-wife of the shooter, 29-year-old Omar Mateen. She says when they first were married in 2009, he was loving and kind in the beginning of the relationship, but soon became dangerous.
And the Orlando Eye tonight, which is a 400-foot-tall Ferris wheel, the largest observation deck on the East Coast, lit up in rainbow colors in honor of the victims of that shooting attack. Several vigils were also held all across Orlando.
And South Florida took time to reflect on all that has happened, the worst mass shooting in history. A vigil was held at Equality Park in Wilton Manors, where Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, among others, spoke out about today's tragedy.
And Miami Beach also held a vigil. The gay community came together to cope with this horrific event. Good evening, everyone. I'm Calvin Hughes.
And I'm Lori Jennings, live in Orlando on what is an agonizing night for so many family and friends of people who were inside Pulse nightclub, the hottest nightclub in Orlando, a tourist attraction. But it is an agonizing night tonight for those families. They've all been told to go home, and there will be no more information until the morning.
We're talking 21 hours ago. Their lives were changed forever. More than 300 people were inside Pulse nightclub. And tonight, so many families are waiting to hear if their loved one's names is going to be on the list of people who remain inside that nightclub. Only 7 so far have been identified. So many more are going to be named. Let's take a look back at a timeline of how we got to this point.
Tonight, we're beginning to get a look at the faces of the innocent victims killed while inside an Orlando nightclub. A night of enjoyment, quickly turning tragic. And pictures given exclusively to Local 10 of Pulse nightclub. You can see the holes in the back of the club, the SWAT team bursting in to end a 3-hour hostage situation. 30 people rescued, many found hiding in bathrooms and closets. This morning, downtown Orlando thrown into lockdown after reports of a mass shooting rampage inside a packed nightclub.
My son, he got shot 3 times.
Listen as the horror unfolds.
Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth.
Clubgoers rushing to the exits as others remain trapped inside. The shooter unleashing a barrage of bullets.
There was bodies everywhere. I really didn't. In the parking lot, they were tagging them red, yellow, so that they know who to help first and who not to help.
Police and FBI rushing to the scene with reports of hostages being held inside. Officers using controlled explosives to secure the area.
We're being told possibly up to 15 remaining in the club that are barricaded in.
Dozens of emergency crews setting up triage units right in the street as desperate family and friends waited for word from loved ones unable to get out.
The local hospital on lockdown shortly after the shooting rampage after receiving several victims with gunshot wounds.
This is OMC. We have the shooter currently inside OMC. We cannot take any more. We're on lockdown.
A typical Saturday night out at a club that bills itself as Orlando's premier gay nightclub, in an instant turning into a night of terror. This is video recorded inside the club just a few hours earlier, showing clubgoers dancing.
Today, as Americans, we grieve the brutal murder, a horrific massacre of dozens of innocent people.
For the 15th time during his presidency, President Obama addressing the nation following a mass shooting.
Although it's still early in the investigation, we know enough to say that this was an act of terror and an act of hate. And as Americans, we are united in grief, in outrage, and in resolve to defend our people.
This tragedy causing deep pain for a mother whose son is missing following the shooting.
I wanted to let you know about my son. When he was in high school, he started the Gay Straight Alliance. And he won the Anna Frank Humanitarian Award.
The shooter, identified as Omar Mateen from Fort Pierce, Mateen called 911 around the time of the attack to pledge allegiance to ISIS and mentioned the Boston bombers, according to a U.S. official. Mateen, 29 years old, died after an exchange of gunfire. The FBI saying they twice interviewed him before the shooting. You know, we talk so much about the victims, and we cannot say enough about them. We talked about 6 people being positively identified from the nightclub, and late tonight we heard of a 7th person. She went by the name of KJ. Her name is Kimberly Morris, only 37 years old, positively identified, still in that nightclub, but her family certainly in a lot of grief tonight.
And she is the first female victim that we have had positively identified. We do have pictures to share with you of 3 of the other 6 victims that have been positively identified. The next of kin is aware of their deaths. They are Edward Sotomayor Jr., only 34 years old, Juan Ramon Guerrero, just 23, and he has relatives in the Hialeah area. Our thoughts go out to them tonight. And Stanley Almodovar III, just 23 years old, so young. Their lives changed in a matter of seconds.
That's right, 1 minute having a good time, and the next minute complete and utter terror. You know, we talk so much about the family going to a site where they were looking for answers and holding on to hope, hoping for the best, and certainly bracing for the worst. Our Erica Rayco has been there all day long, and she joins us live now from that scene where I believe a lot of family members have been told to go home for the night and just wait for word or perhaps come back in the morning to a senior center. Erica.
Calvin, they were told to go home. They were at a hotel not too far away from where we are now, but we are now at the senior center. And at that hotel, they told them, go home, get some rest, meet us back at the senior center at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Of course, many of these people could not just go home and sit and simply wait. So they are already here. There are many of them here at the senior center out front talking with police officers. These are the family and friends of people who don't know where their loved ones are. They are praying that they're in one of these hospitals, just not able to have been identified yet, but fear the worst, that they are dead inside of that nightclub. I want to show you some text messages that will just make you numb. This is a mother here in Orlando. She says she received these text messages from her son, who was inside Pulse nightclub. She has not heard from him since. These text messages came in at just after 2 o'clock in the morning. You can read them here. Mommy, I love you. In the club, they're shooting. She asks if he's okay. He says he alludes to being trapped in the bathroom. He asks his mother to call the police. Call them, Mommy, now. Tell them I'm in the bathroom. He's coming. She says that he's referring to the gunman at that point. I'm gonna die. She says she called 911 at that point. That last text message reading, I'm gonna die at 2:39 a.m. She has not heard from him since. So many here are in the same predicament. It's the sound of hope fading. They've waited at this hotel all day. They emerge moments after doctors arrived with an updated list of names.
They give the list of people that are ill, that are in the hospital, and basically that's it.
So if your loved one was not on that list, you're still...
I assume that he's dead, and I have to wait until tomorrow.
The best possible outcome here was to find out their loved one is critically injured.
We checked the hospital, he's not there. When we went to the club, the officers there told us everyone that's here is going to the morgue.
Jimmy De Jesus is who she's looking for. He was in the nightclub with friends.
Heard the shooting and they thought it was the music. When they start seeing people falling on the floor, they just did the same thing. They went on the floor. And when they looked back, they saw Jimmy behind a wall of people towards the bathroom or inside the bathroom. I don't know exactly. So they decided that was the moment to run, but seems that Jimmy couldn't make it.
Volunteers, restaurants, people who live nearby come by with food and water to those who are just waiting, while pastors and grief counselors pray with them.
There's nothing really to say, just to be there. We call it in the chaplaincy, we call it ministry of presence. Just to be there and try to somehow make a little difference in their lives.
There are no words, I imagine, that you can come up with.
Definitely, there is no words. There's no way. What can we say when somebody loses a loved one like this?
Family members passing the time by looking at pictures of their missing loved ones, sharing their stories.
I'm here for my cousin. His name is Luis Wilson, and his partner, his name is Jean Mendez. Actually, I have some pictures of them. This morning I wake up and I saw pictures in Facebook of them having fun at the club at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I'm just spreading his picture on the media just in case a nurse recognizes him and he cannot talk. If you're out there, Jimmy, we're going to try to find you. Wherever you are, you're going back home.
It hasn't clicked yet. I'm still, right now all I'm doing is trying to find my brother. There's nowhere to find him. There's not right information out there.
And so those are the people still waiting for information tonight, still looking for answers that they will not be getting tonight. They have been told to wait until tomorrow morning to be here at the Senior Center. We are just down the road from the hospital and from Pulse nightclub, that this is where information from the medical examiner's office would now be trickling in. Lori and Calvin.
Erica, you really had a tough emotional job today, talking with those families coming out, told to just go home, and all they were really told were that the names of the injured and the names they know about, correct?
Right, Lori, and let me tell you exactly how this all went down. You heard them screaming and crying. I want to tell you what happened just minutes before that. We were at the Hampton Inn, which was right across the street from ORMC, the trauma center, the hospital where a lot of these victims were. Presumably a lot of these family members, they went to the hospital first thing this morning, because they were optimistic. They were hoping to find their loved ones in that hospital. And soon after, they were shuffled over to this hotel to just wait in the lobby. They had a bunch of rooms set up for people to wait for information. We watched 3 doctors walk over in their white coats from the hospital into that hotel lobby, okay? And we really hadn't seen many family members, only those few who were brave enough to come out and wanting to share their stories. You know, respectfully, they had the media back from the hotel, so we were only able to talk to those coming out willing to speak with us. Everybody else inside. We watched those doctors walk in, we watched them come out. As soon as they came out and crossed the street to go back towards the hospital, everybody just poured out of that hotel. You heard the screams, you saw them crying, you saw people collapsing. We saw paramedics attend to at least one family member. And that was after these doctors went in and read a list of names of people who were in the hospital, people that were injured, people who were in critical condition, and those who were sent home. So those people overcome with grief are the ones who did not hear their loved ones' names. And that is when they started to put it all together and realized, oh no, maybe my loved one, my friend, my family member died and is on the floor of the Pulse nightclub still.
Oh. So many young lives, too. Such raw emotion coming from there. Our Erica Rayco. Erica, thanks a lot. And for many, the worst day of their lives happened today. And for so many, it's only the beginning, because so many don't know.
They won't be sleeping a wink tonight. Yeah. And the one thing so many people can do is give blood. With all these victims and so many in critical condition, that is what people have been lining up to do. The lines were all over town, 8 hours long, we were told, but people didn't mind. They seemed to just wait in line. There was a desperate call for O negative, O positive, and AB plasma. We'll see what the need is specifically tomorrow, but One Blood has been running a lot of these blood drives. We're sure they're going on all around the state as well, but specifically here in Orlando. And it gave people some sense of worth just to help out.
Absolutely. So many people asked, what can I do? How can I help out? I even got a tweet from a young lady who asked, what can I do to help out? Certainly giving blood. And we heard from the imam earlier today who talked about how he asked other Muslims to give blood today. So we also know that there is a police investigation going on about the shooter. We know that they are looking at every aspect of his life, his financial records, cell phone records, everything about him. Our Michael Seiden is on top of that story for us, and he joins us live now with much more about the police investigation taking place.
Calvin, right now a federal investigation underway. In fact, we cannot get past this crime tape. That's because down the street is the club where at this hour authorities continue to collect evidence and remove bodies from inside the club.
Tonight, authorities are combing through a massive crime scene. We've also seen dozens of federal investigators from the FBI rolling into town in this mobile crime unit. Right now, everyone is being kept back at least 3 blocks from where the massacre unfolded, a shooting rampage that killed 50 people and injured dozens more. It's still unclear how many bodies remain inside Pulse in Orlando, the most popular gay nightclub here in Central Florida.
And I noticed that there were a couple of coworkers of mine that were actually inside the club last night when the shootings occurred, and luckily they made it through the back patio and out into someone's vehicle and got away safely.
As we continue to hear those stories of survival, we're also learning more about the 29-year-old shooter and the weapons he used to carry out this terrifying attack. Investigators believe the lone gunman used a legally purchased assault rifle and handgun, similar to the two you see here. Now, a law enforcement source tells Local 10 that the guns were purchased from this store in Port St. Lucie, 123 miles from the shooting scene. There's also reports that he may have been wearing some type of explosive device, which is one reason why authorities waited to take him out after he took hostages inside the club for hours.
It was almost a 3-hour standoff before the police SWAT team got in. So I can't imagine what those people were going through.
While this community comes together, leaning on each other during this difficult time,
this is probably the most difficult day in the history of Orlando.
The chief of police in Orlando is also sending a touching message to his entire department. Earlier tonight, he sent out an email that reads in part, quote, "Our first responders and SWAT team faced a hail of gunfire as they rescued the hostages, and we are blessed beyond words that none of them were gravely injured or killed. But on a day like today and every day, I couldn't be more proud to be your chief." In closing, he writes, "Please hug your families tonight and be safe out there tonight."
And take a look at this photo. Late tonight, the chief of police tweeting out this picture showing the bullet holes left behind on the helmet of one of his SWAT team members. The chief tweeting that officer wearing the helmet is okay. He was not seriously injured. And again, guys, pretty amazing that none of the law enforcement suffered any serious injuries and that none of those authorities were killed during that gunfire. Lori and Calvin, back to you.
Thank goodness. Michael, tell us too, what are you learning specifically about the time right before the gunman was taken down?
So what we're hearing from investigators is that first that shooter entered the club just after 2 a.m., fired shots. The call for help was made. Actually, he made the call for help. Then he came out, confronted police, fired additional shots, and that's when he went back into the club, started taking hostages. We know a number of party goers were in the bathroom, hiding in stalls, calling their friends and family, texting them, and then finally, after he had a hostage situation for about 3 hours, police officers, SWAT team went in and they were able to take him out, fatally wounding him.
And he did all of that with one assault rifle and one handgun. So hard to understand. Michael Seiden live for us on the investigation. Thank you.
And the nightclub is certainly a hot spot for investigators. Certainly another spot for investigators is the suspect's parents' home. We know that the gunman was born in New York, a U.S.-born citizen. His parents are from Afghanistan, but he spent some time in Port St. Lucie, and our Glenna Milberg is live there with much more on that. Glenna.
Calvin, the family lives here in the house. He actually lived about 3 blocks down. FBI raids on both properties. But really what we're learning about Omar Mateen tonight, in hindsight, is so disturbing. He was a security guard. He was a security guard at a courthouse here. He actually checked for weapons in the courthouse. He guarded a residential community, the homes, the people there. And we now find out he has a history of domestic violence. No criminal record, which means he was perfectly valid when he went for his gun licenses from the state of Florida and received them.
Agents came out with bags of evidence, a computer, a monitor, a cell phone after scouring for hours Omar Mateen's Port St. Lucie home. What we now know about the 29-year-old who's been on and off the FBI's radar in the last few years. He's a U.S. citizen, a security guard with valid state gun licenses, who a few years ago lived in Fort Pierce, and that's where another raid was going on at that condo complex. Mateen called 911 himself and pledged allegiance to ISIS before taking the weapons he was licensed to carry and creating unspeakable carnage at the Orlando nightclub. Mateen's family is from Afghanistan. Their Port St. Lucie home of 6 years down the block from the property where he lived, the scene of a third federal raid. That's his father, Sadiq, at the door with agents, cooperating, they say.
Good father, he's got daughters, they're all going to college, I think medical profession. All the grandkids are there. They're just very nice, very quiet, respectful.
But Mateen's father appears in a YouTube channel series of videos claiming his candidacy for president of Afghanistan and talking about the Taliban. His mother worked in the cosmetics at Walgreens, where a manager remembers Omar differently.
You look in someone's eyes, and when they have a dead soul, they're up to no good.
And do you think he had a dead soul? Is that your observation?
No soul at all.
I was devastated, shocked, started shaking.
That's Mateen's Uzbekistani ex-wife in Colorado, who said they met online about 8 years ago. He was not religious or radical, she says, but he was violent.
Well, yeah, he was very short-tempered, and he would often get into fights and arguments with his parents, but because I guess I was the only one in his life, most of the violence was towards me at that time.
Mateen's co-worker at the guard shack of a nearby neighborhood watched the raid on his home today while revealing recent concerning messages he got.
He showed him some texts. He texted him 2 weeks ago about some ammunition and drugs.
Twice, once in 2013 and then 2014, the FBI had reason to investigate Mateen for reported threatening statements and for possible connections with known terrorists. Both times, he was found to be no credible threat.
My fear is that if he lived in this area, that there might be other people that he's affiliated with that are in this area.
Well, we can say right now there is no credible evidence that anyone else is involved, and really right now there's no evidence that ties Omar to ISIS other than his own words. No official ties found that we have heard of yet. G4S is the company in Jupiter where Omar Mateen worked as a security guard, contracted with them. This company put out a statement that said they are shocked and saddened to hear what happened. They are cooperating and working with law enforcement officials as well. And I might tell you, Lori Calvin, this particular company also has the contract to provide guards for the Port St. Lucie nuclear power facility, although right now there is no indication that Omar Mateen worked at that facility at any time. I'm Glenna Milberg reporting live in Port St. Lucie tonight, Local 10 News.
And Glenna, we want to ask you about those that YouTube channel. Apparently the father of Mateen had online. What was on that YouTube channel?
Bizarre is the word people have been using here. It's just surfacing, although this channel was about, over the course of a couple of years, as late as last spring. And his father would just tape hours of his own particular show. And the name of the show, which I can't come off the top of my head right now, but the name of the show was actually the name of a nonprofit. If you check the business records, the nonprofit comes back to his house right here. And it is a nonprofit that has been tied to providing funding, possibly for terrorist organizations in the Middle East. Those ties have not been fully explained right now, but these videos were just an hour of a talk show with Omar Mateen's father hosting them. He claimed at some point he was running to be president of Afghanistan. At some point he claimed that he was. He talked favorably about the Taliban, and some of them hours upon hours upon hours of these particular a series of videos, and then they stopped last spring. Very interesting that none of his neighbors that we talked to knew about them, knew anything about his kind of rants, and just called them very private and very quiet, very nice and very respectful. Interesting.
Bizarre to say the least, those YouTube videos of the parents. Glenna Milberg live there in Port St. Lucie. So we know Omar Mateen lived just 3 blocks from his parents there, but his former apartment was not far away in Fort Pierce. That is where our own Hatzel Vela has been meeting with people at the mosque where this Omar Mateen attended, because in fact, Hatzel, he was a Muslim.
Yeah, and he worshipped here in Fort Pierce. I can tell you before we talk about that, we want to show you some live pictures here because the sheriff, St. Lucie County Sheriff, is about to talk to the media, or talking to the media as we speak. It was shortly before 10 o'clock where the FBI Evidence Response Team arrived here at this apartment. Finally, able to go inside and retrieve any evidence likely found inside apartment 107. That is the apartment where Omar Mateen lived. It is from here we believe that he drove to Orlando and shot all those people. As you mentioned, Lori, we did talk to members of his mosque. We talked to his imam. Prayer in the exact same room where Omar Mateen prayed for years. The Islamic Center of Fort Pierce saw him grow up.
He used to come here 3 or 4 times a week for the night prayers.
Imam Saeed Rahman recalls maybe seeing Mateen this past Friday, days ago. Typically, he says he would come here with his 4-year-old son.
He will go straight to that corner and he will be praying and his son will be playing around him.
Mateen described as a loner with no friends at the mosque. His imam is stunned to hear what happened. Is this surprising to hear?
Extremely unbelievable. Yeah.
Why?
Because we never expected this, because he went to the police academy and then he became a security guard. So we thought he had all kind of clearances from the authorities.
Quite a different picture from the time Mateen was a child, happy-go-lucky, but things changed when he became an adult and became more isolated from the community. The imam tries to make sense of it all.
It might be some psychological problem or some anger or some interaction with somebody, because if this is his mosque, so we never promoted any kind of extremism, or he might be radicalized by the internet.
A sad day for this Islamic community because he says his religion, a religion which is based on peace, once again is at the center of a horrific crime.
Our religion so much emphasized on peace that our greeting is salam. Salam means peace. We are all devastated by this because we have to live a life here. This is our country, and then these kind of episodes make the thing very hard for us.
All right, we just heard from the St. Lucie County Sheriff, who told us the residents here at this apartment building are finally allowed to go back inside and that they were able to make entry at this hour, probably gathering evidence again in apartment 107, which is where Omar Mateen lived. Of course, they're going to be looking carefully at what they are able to find inside, and that's sort of going to give them a picture of what this man was thinking. Again, this is the last spot he was known to have been in before he drove to Orlando. One of the things that the imam also talked about was the fear of backlash now that this has happened. And one thing we did ask, because remember, Mateen was known to the FBI. He had run-ins with them twice, and we asked him, had the FBI ever contacted you to figure out whether there was something wrong with this man? He said never, and he was obviously surprised by what had happened. For now, reporting live in Fort Pierce, Hatzel Vela, Local 10 News.
Hatzel, thank you so much. So far, only the ex-wife is the only one who isn't surprised by the dangerous actions of this man.
Well, we are going to take a very quick break right now. There has been a lot of support and vigils happening in South Florida and 2 cities in particular. We're going to have reaction and that support and show you what's been happening there coming up on the other side of this break as we continue this 1-hour edition, this special edition of Local 10 News.